Hello, my lovely peaches. How are you? Welcome and welcome back. So I'm supposed to be working right now, and then I got distracted because Ian Runkle of the Bailey was reading defense attorney Bowles, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's attorney's motion to get a new trial, and I got all caught up in the comments with people disagreeing with me because this time I felt empowered. So I was empowered last time. I was disagreeing in the comments and stuff. These are my cute pillows. Montessera leaves. Okay, that's what I'm going to talk about. So if you're interested in my thoughts about Hannah Gutierrez-Reed and why, so there was like people totally disagreeing with me, and I was like, I feel like nuance is lost. And then the lady was like, you're just like, you don't like people disagreeing with you. She said something, I'm paraphrasing. And then somebody else said, you're missing the nuance that Hannah was the armorer and Alec was the actor. And I want to talk about that. So join me if you're interested.
At lovedreamingpeach.com.
So the trial ended 3 months ago, April of 2024. Hannah has been in jail since the end of the trial, 3 months now. And just to lay out what I thought at the very beginning of this video, I agreed that she was neglectful in doing her job. I agreed that she was guilty of not checking every bullet. But the nuance that the couple of people who were arguing with me in the comments, it's kind of funny because one of those people, I remember that name as somebody who used to argue with me back in the trial. And it was like, oh God, now here we go again. So a lot of people have what I think is a very black and white way of looking at it, which is Hannah was the armorer. She was responsible, period. It was her job. She should have done her job. My nuanced argument was true. Hannah was the armorer. It was her job to check. Hannah was also only a part-time employee. She had a limited amount of days. She had very limited power. She did not have the authority that the people in the comments are arguing that she should have had, that she didn't have, which was clear because they didn't listen to her. She asked for more time, more hours. She was denied. She was also part-time doing props. So she was doing 2 jobs part-time with limited hours. But yet the people in the comments, and maybe the people in the jury and the judge, thought regardless of that, she's supposed to do her job. And I feel like I said, there's this perfect world ideal that I feel people are applying to Hannah, which is to say that in an ideal world, the armorer would be 100% devoted and dedicated and trained and knowledgeable and skillful and mature and responsible and have the full authority to know every bullet that's in that place, every gun that's in that place, to be present at all times when any gun is being used, when any gun is being handled, and when any bullets are being put in or out of a gun or a holster or any other leather, that she, Hannah, the armorer, should be personally present to do it, to check it. And it's true that Hannah admitted in some place, I don't know if it was a jail call or where, because she didn't testify, that she did not individually shake every specific bullet. She admitted that, shake a box kind of thing, where how do you know what's in there? But then this is where the nuance that I was arguing comes in. So what it seems to me is that some people think Hannah was the armorer, period. And that means she was supposed to be this omnipotent, all-seeing, all-knowing, always present, all-powerful person that oversaw every bullet and every gun, period. And that they're applying that kind of perfect, all-knowing ability to this girl who was nowhere near that. And what I'm saying is that if she was a full-time, fully, like she was the supervisory role, or she was literally, like they said at trial, Hannah was a part-time employee who had absolutely zero supervisor or manager power. She was not considered by anyone on that set, none of the cast nor crew nor workers or whatever, was she considered to be a person of authority or power, somebody to be listened to. She was ignored. She was being split. She was over at props. How can she, like the people are saying in the comments, she was supposed to check the guns. Somebody said she had 3 hours that morning. And I said, yeah, maybe she had 3 hours of time. I personally don't work for free. You're going to pay me for 10 days and that's that. And you got me doing this part-time and that part-time. I am not going to, on my off time, go and work for free. It's not in the contract. I'm not a soldier. I'm not at war. I'm not a volunteer. And as far as I understand, Hannah was not either at war, nor was she a soldier. Like there is no downtime here kind of situation. Like our lives are at risk every second of the day. And I don't care that you're getting paid minimum wage or whatever. You know, like some nasty B in the comments who claimed to be a CEO. And what I didn't say to her, because I was like, let me not attack her personally, I'll just do it here. I said something like, if you're given 10 hours to do a job, why did that just start? Hold up. Okay, so let me back up a little to say, I recognize, like somebody else pointed out in the comments, there are some type of jobs where somebody is salaried and they get paid X amount, and then you basically work unlimited hours. I mean, that's not entirely true because there are still regulatory rules and laws and labor protection and all that stuff in some places, okay? The fact of the matter is, that's not what Hannah had. That's not who she was. That was not her role. And that's what the trial revealed, that she was not expected to work unlimited hours, that it was not. I'm going to try to calm down a little. From what I learned at trial, Hannah did not have the authority, nor did she have the type of employment where it was stated in a contract, you will be paid X amount of money and you will work, period. You're going to work unlimited hours, overtime, etc., and you are going to do whatever needs to be done. You are going to get the job done no matter what. You have all the authority that you need. You are given the resources you need to do the job. You're given assistants who are trained and capable and competent, unlike Sarah Zachary, who literally knew nothing and had 2 misfires that Hannah told Seth she wanted to report because Hannah wanted to do her job right, and Seth told her to drop it. Hannah requested training so she could train the child actor, and I think she wanted to train with Alec, and she was denied and told no. Hannah wanted more hours, and she was told no. So again, these same people who are saying Hannah was the armorer and she was the armorer, period, black and white. She was the armorer, Helena is dead, and that's it. There's no more nuance. And then when I pushed back on those people, I said, but so you're telling me that you think Hannah should have worked for free. And they're like, we're not talking about work for free. We're talking about get the job done in the hours you're given. That's what that lady who claimed to be a CEO said. I said, if you're paid 10 hours, but the job takes 15 hours, then you're saying you expect this person to work for free for those additional hours. And she said, no, it's not a 15-hour job. It's a 10-hour job. So get it done in 10. This lady said, or I don't know if it's a lady, this person claimed to be a CEO. So I responded, no, that's not how it works. You pay people for the work that they're doing. Like, I had a couple of ex-clients who expected me to do 15 hours of work in 10 hours. No, motherfo, that's not how I roll. Go get another chump to do it. And like that other lady pointed out, there's people who do that. Yeah, go get them to do it. But that is not what Hannah's contract said. How do I know? Because I watched the trial, and Hannah was asking for more hours, which means she didn't have a contract that would state you're going to work unlimited hours. Then somebody else pointed out, the same one of those two people who were like arguing with me. There were a few people who said they agreed. Thank you, I appreciate it. The other one was saying, well, she was drinking. Now, maybe Hannah was using while she was on the job. And if she was, I don't know. But again, at the trial, they didn't prove that definitively. So you cannot say definitively that you know she was using while she was at the job, because they didn't prove that definitively at the trial. And whatever the hell she wants to do when she's not at work is nobody's business. She was high when she wasn't at work. She was at the bar. The person literally said to me, she had time to drink and do this other thing at the bar. She had time to check the bullets. What? What she can do when she's not working on her own time has no fucking bearing on what she's doing when she's paid at work. If I'm getting paid to work X amount of hours, and I work X amount of hours, legitimately work that time, and there's more work to do, but I have no more hours paid, and I go do something else because it's my own time now, it's none of your business. And to try to put somebody down or to put them in jail because they went and did private stuff when they weren't, like, that's something I said to that lady. I personally do not believe that the whole, like, that some people's argument was, well, if it was so bad, she should have quit then. That is not a legal answer. Employees are, in my opinion, legally have a right to decent pay and decent hours and a nice, decent work environment. And if you really want that job and you don't want to quit, it shouldn't be legal for an employer to say, well, it was really, really bad, but it's not my fault. It's your fault for not quitting. Hannah, and here's another thing one of the people who did agree with me pointed out. Like I said, she responded to my comment when I said, how many people are going to willingly walk away from a really big opportunity to work on a big film with a big name, Alec Baldwin, in an industry that is literally her dream job, that she believes she's capable of doing, and she's supposed to just walk away and then do what? Not have money? Not be able to live? Not now maybe she's not going to have a good next opportunity? And some people were like, well, some people walked out. Well, maybe those people were a lot more established in their careers. Maybe they were in a union, so they felt protected. And she's like, this is her second major job. She's 24 years old. She's just starting out. And maybe she thought that if she pushed back on the producers, that she would get some positive results. And then somebody died. And now she's in jail. And what I'm saying is, when was she supposed to quit exactly? Yeah, people walked out, but like saying you should have quit. I mean, I understand that there are a lot of things where, you should quit. But if you're trying, like, maybe you didn't want to just quit because maybe you wanted to try to make things right. That's what I'm saying. Like the fact that she wanted to report Sarah Zachary, the misfires, the fact that she was trying to get more training, the fact that she was trying to train a child actor, trying to train with Alec Baldwin, trying to get more authority, trying to get an assistant who was competent. So what I see is somebody who was aware that this was not working and she wanted to stay to try to fix it. And I personally think that that's something commendable. Now, it's not commendable that she said all that stupid jacked up shit on her jail calls. And obviously she was an idiot and not a very nice person. And she was neglectful. And so, do I believe that she should have been hit with the book and got the maximum 18 months? No, I don't. And I think that there's a very likely possibility now that we know Kari Morrissey and the investigating officer Hancock and the crime scene tech Popple, we know that they were all corrupt, lying, hiding, making their decisions of who they were going to charge and who they were not going to charge. We know that Sarah Zachary literally threw out bullets and shit, but we'll never know what they are. So why does that matter? Because it sounds like what was covered up by Kari and Hancock and Popple was the fact that there were bullets that matched, there were live rounds that matched dummy rounds, which means, so this was my point. Yes, Hannah was neglectful, similarly to how Dave Halls was neglectful and Alec Baldwin was neglectful. This was the thing that the lady said, or whoever said, you're missing the nuance that Hannah was the armorer and Alec was the actor, because I said, in Alec Baldwin's mind, there was no way in any world, like there was no chance on earth that there was a live round in there. So the way he was using the gun was all based on a total 100% belief that it was a safe, cold gun, because that's what he was told, and he had no reason to believe otherwise. And what I'm saying is that Hannah was equally incorrect in making an assumption that all of these bullets that we have up in here are dummy rounds. So I believe that she was being neglectful to check every bullet because she already had this overarching assumption that all of these bullets are dummy rounds. So it's like she already thought that wasn't true. But how did they get there? We don't know. There was no order. There was no inventory. There was no lock and key. It was all open. But there was also Sarah Zachary and that other girl and So what I'm saying is that if Seth Kinney realized that he somehow accidentally got some live rounds mixed in there that looked exactly like some dummy rounds, which is what it sounds like happened, which is why Kari Morrissey was yeeted and the whole case was yeeted with prejudice, meaning you can't ever charge Alec again, because she concealed extremely damning evidence. So what I'm trying to point out, the nuance that I'm getting to, that many people who think in black and white just simply do not care, or even if they don't think in black and white, but they just have this particular belief that Hannah as the armorer should have been this omnipotent, all-knowing, and no matter what, done the job, work for free, I don't fucking care, you get it done. And if that's your mentality, then you're obviously not going to agree with me. If you're like that supposed CEO who says, I don't care if it takes 15 hours, do it in 10, get better at your job. I'm only going to pay you for 10, regardless if it takes you 15, and that's somehow your fault. I mean, that's a despicable way to think. And that's how a lot of people think. That's how a lot of managers think, a lot of corporations think. I mean, that is a capitalistic way, and that is the antithesis of how I am. I would never think that a person should get the job that's basic. Like I had a boss like that very briefly, and we were talking about, he said, I will pay you for 35 hours a week. And then after I worked a week, and I was like, well, actually, it's like 40 hours that I'm actually here. And he said, okay, well, my policy is I pay you for 35 hours a week. And if you work over that, then he had this weird, like every hour that you work over 35 hours becomes like 1 second that goes somewhere and some things. And I was like, wait, excuse me? I said, no, I don't agree to that. I said, I don't work for free. This is my rate. If I work this amount of hours, I expect to get paid. If you're not going to pay me more than 35 hours, then I wouldn't stay. I'm not going to stay. I'm not going to do 40 hours worth of work and get paid for 35. Absolutely not. And he said, well, that's my policy. And then I said, okay, I quit. And I walked out. Well, I went and I got my stuff, and he tried to, tell me like, well, this is just the way it is. I have other employees who agree to that. And he even said something like, I've never had an employee tell me no. And I said, great. Maybe you'll find somebody else who'll say yes to that. That ain't me. Cha-cha. Bye-bye. Chow mein. I'm out. You get to make that choice as well. You get to decide, am I going to be that chump or whatever? Like, like I said, maybe it's a volunteer job. Somebody who agreed with me in the comments did say something about that's like expecting firefighters or police officers to work overtime. Like no matter what, you're just supposed to constantly be 24/7 on. And I understand it doesn't take 24/7 to do the job, but it's the idea that once you've hired someone, it's their job to do the job and get it done no matter what. And what I'm saying is, like, there are some jobs where, like, you send a soldier off to war, I'm assuming that they don't get to just take a break because they want to, and that there's a lot of totally not reasonable expectations on their time and their hours. And there are roles like that. I am aware of that. Just like if a firefighter is fighting a fire and he's like, oops, time is up. He's not going to just walk away from the fire, right? I understand that, but there are different levels of expectation. And if people want to believe that an armorer is this, like somebody said, her job was to protect life and that's it. Yikes, cringe. Like, what? Girlfriend was not that powerful. I don't know what make-believe world you're living in where that's the job. Like, that's not my understanding. I looked it up. I listened to the trial. There are some rules and regulations, but at the same time, there is no federal standard. There is no test or license or certification or courses or schooling or university or anything in particular that you're required by law to have. There's no across the board understanding of this job requires X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, and that is that. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I understand it should be held to a certain standard. But I also believe you can't retroactively apply a law and then, but hey, in the case of, so this is the thing, the jury instructions and the questions that they had to answer in Hannah's case, I'm not going to pull them up right now, but I do believe that they had to answer, was she negligent? Yes. Was she responsible? Like, did she basically do something that was she the cause of the death? And they answered yes. And I think there was another question or two. There was a couple of questions that I thought, if the jury believed that Hannah truly had no connection to getting if they believed that, like Erlinda Johnson had said in her interview with Chris Cuomo, Erlinda Johnson being the second special prosecutor with Kari Morrissey for the Alec Baldwin case, who yeeted herself in the middle of the motion to dismiss. She said in her interview with Chris Cuomo, Kari Morrissey, she didn't say this part, but basically Kari Morrissey lied when Kari Morrissey said on the stand under oath as a witness that the reason she said, I think she left because she didn't want the hearing. She didn't want the hearing to be public. And that was a lie. And Kari knew that because Erlinda Johnson said she was arguing that they should dismiss the case because of this Brady violation, because of the suppressed evidence. And Erlinda Johnson was saying that she was telling Kari, we need to dismiss the case. And Kari refused. And that is why, after the break, Erlinda went and said, I'm out. So Erlinda said in the interview with Chris Cuomo that it could have been argued that actually Hannah was a good armorer and she was doing her job, but there was some sabotage. People had access to the guns. Again, it should have been her job, but she didn't have the authority. She was a part-time, lowly employee who had props and armorer. She had a so-called assistant who was completely incompetent. She had Seth, who was supposed to sort of be overseeing them, who is a shady-ass mofo who could very well be the person who not only brought the live rounds into the set, but made everybody believe, the cops, the prosecutor, he was so all up in there, proving that it was Reed, not him. He had like a month or so to clean out his place. He got to like, it's just so corrupt. It was so corrupt. So my whole thing is, if you know that this whole thing was so corrupt, 18 months is a long ass time. And I get it. Somebody died. But just like it was unjust to put Alec in jail, it doesn't bring the woman back. It doesn't improve her child's life or her husband's life. It doesn't make the world a safer place, you know? And I personally feel that there is a possibility that Judge Summers may say, due to the Brady violation that we now know, due to the suppressed evidence that we now know about, and Bowles made some good points. I will admit that I missed half of what Ian was saying because I was so busy in the comments that I missed half of what was read. But for the most part, Ian said, he does think that there is may be a good case for a new trial, but wouldn't it be better to just like have her released? Wouldn't it be better to just say, can we just reduce her sentence? How about let her out on parole? You know, like keep the whole sentence as parole. Make sure she don't do nothing again. Let her have to be checking in every week. Let her have to stay close by, or what, you know, whatever the requirements are. Keep those, you know. But again, how has she behaved in jail? Has she been a model citizen? Is she being helpful? Is she being cooperative? You know, is she being disruptive? And look at all of that. Maybe there's some more jail calls that the judge could listen to. Has she realized what a fuck up she was and how that did contribute? Again, I feel like, so Seth Kinney had testified that there were muddy, like when he was shaking it, it was muddy. It sounded muddy, meaning the little balls or whatever that are supposed to go ding, 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 or, you know, to let you know that it's a dummy round, were muddy, like literal dirt, and like they weren't shaking. So what I'm wondering is, if Hannah had all of these rounds that she believed, because they came from Seth and he told her these are all dummy rounds, and she truly believed there's not a single live bullet in here, and they all happen to look quite alike, and you know, maybe she felt like, again, wrong, incorrect, you know, you have to do the job. It's thankless. It's like being a hostess, or literally just being alive. You know, you have to eat, and then you have to shit, and then you take a shower, you do your hair, and then gets dirty again. You got to do it again the next day. You shave your pits, you got to do it again. You shave your legs, got to do it again. You wash your dishes, then you got to eat, and you got to do it again. There's a lot of things in life that are thankless and repetitive, and maybe being an armorer is one of those type of things, but it matters for saving your life. Again, I am saying that if Hannah believed falsely, wrongly, and ignorantly that the set contained dummy rounds and that was it, then in her negligence, she would have been believing, I'm just being negligent, I'm not rechecking these things, you know, these are the dummy rounds, or the same dummy rounds, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was new rounds each time. And didn't maybe somebody say she kept going to her car to get some stuff? But again, if everything she had, she truly believed, whether it's in the car, in the cart, over there, over here, they're all dummy rounds, and they weren't. So I believe that this case should create new laws that enforce, or attempt to enforce, new requirements. And that if you're going to have an armorer, that first of all, it's not all on the person, the armorer. if you're going to have a movie, if you're going to have a movie where there's an armorer, it should be required by law that the employer hire a full-time armorer, and that's their sole job, and maybe also have an assistant, like, at all times. And, you know, maybe they could take breaks or something, but like there needs, and I'm not saying, you know, obviously they're going to take breaks, but when they're taking breaks, nobody's handling guns. You know, that's another thing. If the armorer's not there, then you're not doing the stuff. You're not handling guns. You know, you need to have like locked, safe, and tight inventory. And all of those things need to be implemented. My whole thing is, how can you apply all of those rules and regulations and expectations on Hannah and personally make her responsible for failing to do that when that is literally not what she did not, like, that's not what it was. I understand that someone died because of her negligence. I just feel there was so much nuance that made it really, really muddy, just like those freaking bullets, those muddy rounds, the muddy investigation, the lying, the hiding, the, you know, scapegoating. And I feel like a lot of that should come into play. And maybe the judge is going to read Bowles's motion and she will say, like, it doesn't make, to me, it makes no sense to push for another trial, because I don't know, I just feel like if she's got 15 months left, that's a year and some, so another trial, it seems to me that it could potentially take about as long. And it might, you know, maybe what she wants is another trial so she can get rid of the felony charge, because she's now a convicted felon. She can never be an armorer again, I believe. So I've heard, I don't know if it's true, I heard that she still has dreams of being an armorer, and some people feel like, no, you should never be allowed to ever do that again. And I don't have a hard opinion on that, you know, like if somebody is in a car accident and someone dies and they're found guilty of negligent, you know, driving and manslaughter, are they not ever allowed to drive ever again in their entire life? I don't know the answer to that. Or is there like an amount of time that you can't drive for, you know? I'm just saying, I don't think it's fair to misapply a law because you hate somebody, or because you think she's a fucking bitch, or you think, you know, just like Kari said, she wanted to teach Baldwin a lesson. And that's what I feel like a lot of people's attitude towards Hannah is, yes, something tragic happened, and yes, she was neglectful, and maybe many people just believe that's enough, and 18 months is not that much, and she's young, and she's young and it'll be done. But again, like, it's a dangerous place to be in jail, and it's not a good place. It's a very severe punishment. It's a complete loss of any kind of autonomy, personal, you know, rights, everything. And I understand many people feel good, there's somebody dead, and that she had no concept of the severity of what she was doing and the seriousness of her job. And I agree, but I also agree that the employer and the movie scene, and yes, the producer and the production and the DA and the AD and the assistant director and the other armorer and the everything, like, I feel like there's just so many aspects that are going into this. I could imagine Hannah either being let out on parole. I don't know. Would they dismiss the charges altogether? Would Summer say, you know what? They were so corrupt and they had so many violations that at this point, just throw the whole thing in the garbage? I don't know. I don't think so, to be honest. I don't foresee that the judge will toss it. Maybe she'll grant a new trial. But how can you grant a new trial? Like, that's why Alec Baldwin's case was dismissed, because the investigation was so bad and the Brady violations were so extreme that there was literally no way to do this over. It's like, you investigated so terribly and you lied and you hid stuff that there's no going back now. There's no way to make sense of it because of what you did. And I do see that could equally apply to Hannah, because they really, really, really poured on the guilt on Hannah, and they scapegoated her, and they made it seem like she bore the brunt of all the responsibility. And a lot of people ate that up. A lot of people are still yucking it up and vomiting it out in the comments. Like, she was the armorer, period. And I'm like, well, what about all the nuance about everything else? I don't believe that she was this omnipotent, all-powerful person, nor do I think that she could have. I don't think there was any chance that could have even have happened. And even if she was so dedicated that she was like, I am going to work tirelessly for free. I'm going to just do this out of the goodness of my heart. I'm going to volunteer to save everybody's lives because, I don't have a life. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to get paid. No, I'm just going to work all day, all night, checking. I'm going to be in 2 places at once. Like, I don't know. Just doesn't seem realistic to me. But at the end of the day, the girl has been already convicted. She's already in jail. She's been in jail for 3 months, and she's got 15 more months on her sentence to do. I think it was like she was going to get out after, I don't know, maybe like 15 months or something like that. And maybe there was some, I don't know if she had any time served, because I don't believe she was being held. I don't remember, to be honest, right now, if she was being held during the trial or not. I don't think so, because I think she was taken into custody right after, the verdict. She was then taken into custody. So no, she hadn't been being held. And, I'm imagining maybe she's gotten to know some young women in there who've been through a hell of a lot of trauma and violence and horrible stuff and death and all kinds of things. And, I personally would imagine that 3 months is enough for her to have made some real change. But again, I don't know what Judge Summers is going to decide and how that all is going to pan out. But those are my thoughts about why I thought that Hannah Gutierrez's sentence was harsh. Although then I also, there were like jail calls that were recorded where she talked shit about the judge, and she said like, well, mistakes happen and people die, and she was super callous and she was making excuses, and it seemed as if she had no concept of how bad she fucked up and how severe it was and how serious it was, nor did she seem to be grieving or have, it seemed like an appropriate amount of humility and, that she realized how bad it really was. But at the same time, if I were her and I had felt like I've been asking for more hours, I've been asking for training, and I was told no. I was told no, you can't have more hours. I was told not only can you not have more hours, but the little bit of hours we delegated to you, you got to go do something else half the time. I asked for assistance, and I was given this absolutely incompetent person who caused more problems than anything. I asked if I could report this so I could be professional and do the right thing, and I was told to drop it. At every turn, I was undermined and undercut. But I didn't want to quit because this was like a dream job. Why should I quit? I'm trying to make it right. Bang, oops, somebody's dead now. I have no more chances of making it right. And now she's in jail. So I don't know. I feel like the absolute utter, like the pure anger, the justifiable disgust at Kari Morrissey and her crew. I don't know. I don't know if they know each other. Again, I think Kari is. I know she is a independent defense attorney who has her own practice, and she was hired as a special prosecutor to prosecute this case. So she does not work for the Santa Fe Sheriff's Department, and that's where investigating officer Hancock and the CST Popple work. I hope they get fired. I really, really do. And I hope that Morrissey gets disbarred. And I hope that there's some evidence that Hannah has matured. And if there's not evidence that she's matured, then maybe she'll continue staying in jail and she'll serve her sentence. However, it does seem to me to be odd that something would not happen in Hannah's favor in the light of Kari's absolute lying and hiding evidence. So if I had to guess, I would say I think there's a good chance that something might move in the positive for Hannah, but at the same time, I could also see the possibility that Judge Summers may say, well, Hannah's case was different. Bowles had some. So Bowles, Hannah's defense attorney, he had some knowledge, but some of it wasn't given to him. So some was suppressed. So there may be some Brady violations that apply to Hannah's case, and that may be the undoing of it. And maybe she'll get released. And if Judge Summers, why do I say Summers? If Judge Summers determines there were Brady violations in Hannah's case, her case is going to be dismissed with prejudice, and she will be released from jail. Her felony charge will be erased from her record. I could see that as a possibility too. The amount of pissed offness, that the absolute level of justifiable rage that the judge had, but that was all calm and collected and lawful law. And she explained it clear and plain as day why this reached the level that allowed for the case to be dismissed with prejudice. And I feel that in the light of that, and with the new knowledge that did come out, that Kari had been suppressing evidence since Hannah's trial was actively going on. Literally, Troy Teskey came to the courthouse with this evidence during the trial, and they suppressed it. I think there's a possibility Hannah might get released and her case dismissed. But at the same time, I don't know. And that's why I find it interesting. Oh, that was one last thing I'll say. One of the people who kept coming back and forth, and then she was like, I don't know why I'm assuming, so she just, I just can't stand people defending her. So I was like, well, why would you even watch the trial? Like, the whole point of the trial is to defend her. Like, I mean, it's also to try to prosecute her, but it's like, why would you want to watch something where half of the whole point of it is to defend her if you can't stand people defending her? You can't stand listening to people defend her. And then the response was, well, what do you mean? That doesn't even make sense. Why I can't watch a trial just because I don't, like basically saying that my opinion is stupid. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, she didn't use those words, but essentially meant like, why shouldn't I want to watch a trial just because I don't like somebody's, ridiculous argument? Well, I don't think it's ridiculous. Other people did agree with me, and the judge may very well, in the end, find, again, if there wasn't this Brady violation, then I think that, no, there was not going to be any positives for Hannah, because what was determined was determined. And at her trial, what came up was what came up, based on the evidence that her lawyer knew about. He does mention there was 2 Hague reports that he never got to see, and he never saw the evidence. So that could very well be a Brady violation, and he very well may have had a different defense strategy and different evidence that he would try to present and different witnesses, etc., that he would have called if this evidence hadn't been suppressed. And the judge may very well have had a different opinion of Hannah and Hannah's role if she knew that the investigators, the investigative officers, and the prosecution was corrupt, and the crime scene tech, the lady who handles the evidence, if she knew that the cop, the investigator, the prosecutor, and the crime scene tech who handled the evidence were all corrupt, she very well may have had a different opinion. And maybe she would have had harsh words for Hannah, but not necessarily thrown the 18 months at her. Again, how can we ever know when we don't know? Because that's not what happened. So I'm super curious to hear what Judge Summers is going to say in response to this motion. And again, I genuinely felt, and I may have even said in some of my videos, like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I'm like such a minority, because it seems like 95% of people are essentially saying, throw the book at Hannah. She's basically a murderer. You know, she was super neglectful. It was her job, period. She put that bullet in the gun. She needs to go to jail, done and done. And maybe those people will still say it's totally irrelevant if Seth brought the gun in versus if Seth brought that bullet in versus she brought that bullet in. But I don't think so, because if she truly believed all of these bullets that I've brought in are dummy rounds, she was being neglectful because she made an assumption that there were only dummy rounds. So again, obviously she was wrong, and it led to a death. And it was a fatal accident, a fatal mistake, a fatal assumption, a fatal negligence. And should she be in jail? Again, at the time, I felt like, how is jail going to help this girl? She needs to take classes. She needs she needs to do community service. She needs to be educated. Jail, I mean, there's people who believe that harsh punishment is always the answer. And I don't believe that a harsh punishment is the right remedy in every case. And I know that harsh punishment isn't considered the remedy in every case. And some people might say 18 months is not harsh. I think it is. I wouldn't want to spend 18 months in jail. One night in jail would be harsh. I couldn't imagine a year and a half of my life, But, so those are my thoughts. And, I just was like, oh my goodness. I feel so vindicated. I knew in my heart and soul, and my instinct knew, this is wrong. Something is corrupt. She was neglectful, true, no doubt, but there's so many other nuances. There's so many other avenues. There's so many other players. There's so much going on. And I despised Kari. I thought she was condescending, literally evil. She's just like the worst, okay? But I thought she was overzealous and a fucking bitch. But, she believed what she believed, and she's trying to get some kind of justice. I also despised I.O. Hancock. Thought she was also a total corrupt. Yet, the trial, when it went the way it went, Hannah was convicted. And that was that. So now I'm making this video because the people in the comments inspired me, but also just the fact that I feel like I was right. I do feel vindicated. I do feel like I knew something was wrong. I knew that there was some nuance that was being missed. I knew that something did not feel on the up and up. And even though Hannah was neglectful, as I have said endlessly, countlessly, I personally believe that there was so many other things going on that should have been pointed out, and that could have had a different result. And now that we know that there was literal evidence suppressed, that could very well have been the truth. So I'll be waiting for Judge Sumner's, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
At lovedreamingpeach.com.
At lovedreamingpeach.com.